Hello, I'm Bryan House, Chief Experience Officer here at ElasticPath, and I have the pleasure of being joined today by ElasticPath Commerce Cloud customer Frank Ricciardi, founder and CEO of Maavee. Today, we'll be kicking off an 8-part mini-series where we'll dive into Maavee's digital commerce journey. And today, we'll be discussing who Maavee is and their journey to embracing a composable commerce approach. But before we get started, Frank, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hey, Bryan, thanks for having me. Really good to be here. Frank Ricciardi, as Bryan said, founder and CEO of Maavee. Tech guy forever, always in the tech business, always been in the cloud business, became an entrepreneur right before COVID. And here we are with a product in the market built on the ElasticPath core.
It's awesome. I can relate to that. I'm an entrepreneur as well. It's a lot of fun operating in this world.
Sure is.
So maybe to just kick us off, set some context here. Tell us a little bit about what is Maavee and what's the vision behind your brand.
Sure. So Maavee actually means my life in French, by pronunciation, not by spelling. And our vision is really to connect humans to their very personal wellness journey. And we have this promise to make it easy to discover the best of wellness along the way. So right now, we have entered the market. We're a B2B2C company. So we've entered the market solving a very specific problem for employers, actually. We want to help employers make well-being more accessible, more personal, and more purposeful at the same time. And the whole notion, Bryan, is that employers are so well intended on ensuring that their employees are well, but it's impossible to know what Bryan needs in the moment. And so what we've done as a first step is curated the very best of wellness out there in the market, because it's a giant market with a lot to offer consumers. We've curated the best of, and we simply allow employers to offer funds to be spent along your personal wellness journey. Now, our vision is much bigger than that. But that is where we entered the market. I mean, we envision ourselves eventually going directly to the consumer space, but not until we have authentically figured out how to find the right audience to really connect to as consumers, because there are a lot of us. And so, but the vision is big. And right now we're focused on the employee-employer relationship.
Oh, that's fantastic. And that's classic sort of startup scenarios. You got to solve one problem first and then grow, right? So It makes a ton of sense. Now, I know you were initially planning to launch your site and your commerce store on Shopify Plus. Then you guys went through a process of pivoting and changing. Can you talk through some of the reasoning for those changes?
Yeah. So when we set up on this adventure from a technology perspective, we spent a lot of time really understanding the technology, let's call it the e-commerce technology market. We were not going to go build our own e-commerce platform because they exist. And what we very quickly realized was that we needed a headless solution. And it took us a little bit of digging to realize that headless means different things to different people. And it also exists on a spectrum, quite honestly.
Sure.
There's the kind of monolith approach, and they expose some APIs, and that's headless, all the way to the API first approach that you just simply build services yourself using those APIs. Now, as you know, and as a startup, you need to get to market fast. And so we were trying to balance the cost and speed with the flexibility that we knew we needed, which is why we knew we knew we needed headless, because we knew our vision was so big that eventually API first was the kind of headless we needed. And we did a lot of due diligence. We did it rather quickly, and we surprised ourselves at how quickly we were able to move. And we did choose Shopify Plus, but it became very clear to us that we were going to run into a roadblock, unfortunately. And it was a flexibility roadblock. Along the way, there was flexibility afforded to us. But when we got to a very important step for Maavee, which was the checkout process, we were constrained. And for us, there were really two gating factors. One was we wanted to control the experience because we built an app first, and that app experience was ours. And two, we have our own currency, actually. As I said, employers put money in your digital wallet. We call it Maavee Cash. And employees get to choose how to spend it. It's currency. And so we were sort of blocked from doing that. And that was a showstopper for us. So we had to quickly pivot. And, for us, it was a blessing in disguise because it afforded us, moving to Elastic Path actually afforded us flexibilities that we knew we needed down the road, but a lot faster. So the pivot turned out to be a blessing.
Interesting. And one of the things that I think is unique in the commerce space and gets me excited is there are very sort of standard paths for what is commerce, and therefore I have a product detail page and a landing page and a standard checkout, and I go through
right,
whatever the standard payment channels are. But those constraints, in some ways, and I think you were just describing this, impact the business model options that you have, right? And so, it's great.
And the speed at which you can access those options.
Exactly, right. And part of I always find that from a startup and entrepreneurial perspective, it's the combination of sort of technical or product innovation with business model innovation is really where great startups go. And so, the one thing that technology can't do is impose constraints on your ability to have business model innovation. Otherwise, you've hamstrung your startups. And so it sounds a little bit like that was a key piece of why ultimately Elastic Path proved to be the solution that you chose to move forward with.
It is. And I mean, when one pivots in the middle of a process, it's a fire drill. So being a startup is a fire drill in and of itself, right?
Yes.
And then when you pivot, there is a sense of urgency like I've never experienced. And I will tell you, it took us about 21 days to make a new decision, which is mind-blowingly fast, right? Now, we had a little bit of research on the market, but that pivot would not have been possible. We shortlisted again 3 vendors. Elastic Path was one of them. And our urgency and ability to execute the pivot would not have been possible if Elastic Path didn't show up the way they did for us. So it was a really important moment that was much more than the technology, because for us as a new e-commerce company, we needed a partner to show up. And so you guys really, shined in the process.
Great. Well, thank you. And that's great to hear. And, and that really is my purview in my role as Chief Experience Officer is, once we engage with a customer from that sort of day one, how do we build a great, delightful experience that enables and accelerates your path to your business objectives? And right. And there's a lot of moving parts there. Some are technology, some are business process, some are people. but really staying sort of hyper focused on that. So, if now that you've gone through this journey, you've made your pivot, you guys have launched and are building your business. What's been the biggest aha moment since embracing composable commerce? What do you know now that you didn't know when you were going through the selection processes?
I think we've reinforced things that we thought.
Mm-hmm.
And specifically what I mean, and we just alluded to it, headless requires a partner.
Yeah.
We were not sitting on like 50 developers with nothing to do.
Mm-hmm.
So
no one is.
we really were resource constrained, and we didn't know your APIs. Mm-hmm. We have, this was a new endeavor for us. And so we really needed to lean on your service and support.
Mm-hmm.
It's one thing to say we have all the documentation in the world. It is another thing to say you can reach us by Slack.
Mm-hmm.
It is quite another thing for you to show up on a call because we have a problem with 5 people on your side.
Mm-hmm.
And I have to tell you, Brian, I have said this to Harry Chemko several times. I've, on many occasions, felt like we were your only customer. Like, I didn't understand how you showed up so often when we needed you, like we were one of your giant customers. I mean, we weren't even live, right? We had a hope and a dream and a PowerPoint. So, but you guys showed up for us, and so that is it was really reinforced for us. I mean, it's kind of an aha that we knew we needed support, but it was really reinforced. The other was, we say things like true headless affords us the flexibility that we need. Again, intellectually, we knew that we would need resources on our side to do things that are not like standard out of the box in a Shopify Plus. Sure. And that was clarified for us. I mean, it is in fact true. And so, on the one hand, the things that you want to be out of the box are not. On the other hand, you have infinite flexibility to do what you want. And so there's always that tug, like, oh God, we wish that was out of the box, Yep. But at the same time, it really does force you to ask yourself, do you need that now? How do you need that to show up? Do you think you need it? Is there anything about what you need that's going to need to change over time? And so it really forces ourselves to ask important questions, which keeps us on our toes.
Yeah. And and it's funny from a product perspective, because I own the product management function here. It's a little bit of real world customer experience, and the reason that we have product and customer success and global services in my org is to put all 3 of those functions on the front line, so that way we can learn from our customers where the friction points really are rather than where we think they are, and then we can optimize and those out, right, and design those out. But it's I think we've all had product experiences both as builders of products and companies as well as consumers of them, where all the assumptions are made for us, and then you get sort of stuck in somebody else's view of your world rather than the view that you're trying to follow. And so that's a huge part of our sort of philosophy here is put everyone on the front line and really understand real world problems to solve rather than sort of backroom academic thinking around that.
And we feel it. We really feel it. I remember saying to Harry in the sales process, we had a call at one point late in the sales process, a video call just like this. And behind him were your guiding principles at Elastic. And one of them was listen to or act as if you're the customer. And I remember seeing the sign and saying, hey, Harry, like, I don't remember, you never told me about your guiding principles, but I see them over your shoulder. And what I said to him was, it's really interesting that no one tried to tell me those
Mm-hmm.
but I'm on the call at the end of the sales process and I see them and I know they're true.
Mm-hmm.
And I just remember that moment of being like, God, you guys acted, you didn't just tell.
Yeah, exactly. Sort of you earn credibility by behaving authentically to the things that drive and motivate your business and building I believe this sort of a first principles approach to building businesses and products that you want to use and you want to embody. So it's great to hear that that has come through. So, maybe as you think about going forward, what are the challenges that you see in the short term that lie ahead of you as you think about composable technology and where your business is evolving?
The challenges, look, I think the challenge in a resource constrained environment is always going to be, how do you evolve the product?
Mm-hmm.
How do you invest in the product?
Mm-hmm.
And how do you really decide what to do next? We're always going to be faced with that. And, what's interesting about our model, and we didn't talk about this, but when we say we need flexibility, that's sort of a comment on steroids, really, because let me explain. We've always had this notion that making it easy to discover the best of wellness doesn't have to happen in the Maavee experience. So it's sort of a strange comment, maybe, of course, we would like every human being to be using Maavee, but, that's not going to happen. And we think that there are other solutions out there that are serving authentic audiences where it makes sense for those audiences to be able to shop well to be well. Like, imagine a fitness app, for example, that is delivering fitness content, also has a marketplace. We can, through a headless approach, serve that other solution and capture the hearts and souls of an authentic audience that already exists. So, when I think about our challenge is really about customer acquisition, human by human, and how do you do that most efficiently? And we have real deals on the table that have large audiences that are saying, hey, we love what you've built. Our audiences are ready to consume some of what you've curated authentically. But we're not an e-commerce company, but Maavee is, right?
Yeah, that's right.
So, Harry and I had these conversations really early, and they were like these mind-blowing, whoa, there's a marketplace of marketplaces, and so these are the kinds of things, like, we're in discussions 3 years before we normally would have been in these discussions. And it's really efficient customer acquisition. Now, it doesn't mean we're abandoning the experience we want to build, because that's authentic in and of itself.
Yeah.
But, we've painstakingly curated almost 1,000 products with no end in sight that are great. And we want to give those brands a voice in places where that voice will resonate. So interesting challenges ahead.
That's excellent. That's great to hear. And, I think you made a point that really landed with me, which is, the partners and distribution partners you talked about, we're very clear, like, we're not an e-commerce company, right? And so suddenly becoming experts in everything, we all know that's a losing business strategy. Focus on your core competencies. And so this ability for you with your technology and products to become as you described, a marketplace of marketplaces, really starts again to be focused on business model innovation that's enabled by technology rather than constrained by technology.
100%.
Nice. So last question for you. What advice would you give to other brands, other entrepreneurs that are looking to make the jump into Composable?
Know what headless means. It's a word that's out there. It's being thrown around. Really understand that there is a spectrum and where you need to fall on it at the moment. When you're going through vendor selection, make sure that you're not just talking to the sales team. That's, I feel like, a losing proposition. No offense to salespeople. They do a really good job of representing the company. But at the end of the day, you're not talking to the salesperson the minute after you sign the contract. So I come from the world of cloud. I know this really well. I've been in your position where I've been responsible for customer experience, and that overlap between sales and client experience is so important. And it's not really an overlap; it's just a continuum. And
that's
so,
right.
we spoke to the product team, we spoke to the service team, we spoke to the support team, we spoke to we even spoke to your tech team. And so it was amazing. We felt really comfortable when we finally made the decision. And I think the last thing is really understand the partners or vendor, for lack of a better terms, product strategy. Where are they going? Because, you could say, well, headless means Maavee can do whatever we want. Well, but not if you're not going to build, the integration hub. It's going to be harder for us. That was an innovation for us that was really important. And we knew about that, in the sales process, that it was coming. And when is it coming? And so, how do you guys think about administration? How do you think about marketplace? How do you think about marketplace versus a composable solution that's out there in the market? And so all those questions are really important to have answered. And so you can't just answer that through sales.
Yeah. I think that, and a big part of my role and our company philosophy is everybody's in sales. So that way you don't become so single threaded, right? And
exactly.
And don't create a scenario where you end up feeling like you're taking it on faith, right? Listen, but validate. And, and our teams are great in front of the front lines because, we want to help our customers achieve their goals and be successful.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Well, hey, Frank, it was great to catch up again. Thank you for your time. And I look forward to the rest of the series and hearing more about the journey and digging in with you. So this is a great session. Thanks again.
Thank you, Brian. And like I said, the punchline here is we're thrilled to have Elastic Path at the core of what we're building. And we know that it's a journey of two in this case.
Right. Awesome. Thanks, Frank.
Hey, Brian, thanks very much.